Matthew.
Hey, what's going on,
See you
man?
again.
Hey, you too. How you doing?
Doing good. Doing good. How about yourself?
Can't complain much. Not that
I
anyone would
figured,
listen.
no, that's true. I don't listen to you anyway. I'm just kidding. I figured today we would talk about something that's kind of scary, and that is that some American citizens crossed over into Mexico and were kidnapped, and some of them never made it back. Apparently, a group of people from North Carolina, South Carolina, um, made their way to Texas, rented a vehicle in Texas, and crossed the border to accompany one of them who wanted to get cosmetic surgery in Mexico because, of course, it's way too expensive here in the United States. So,
And it's an elective. Usually, insurance won't cover it anyway.
speculation is saying that it was most likely a tummy tuck procedure, and that and be honest with you, I'm speaking on a personal level. I know people who actually went to Mexico to get the exact same procedures done because it's too expensive here.
Oh yeah.
A former daughter-in-law of mine is she had to go through that, but luckily there were no incidents. What happened was apparently these four individuals pulled up in a town that was pretty much run by one cartel, but it was sectioned off to different groups within the cartel.
Right.
And according to the president of Mexico, the speculation is that the cartel mistook the four travelers for Haitian drug smugglers or drug traffickers.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. And so they opened fire on the vehicle and took them hostage or kidnapped them. When they opened fire on the vehicle, they shot two of them who ended up passing away. One more was wounded, which they put in an ambulance and took to a medical center that they owned.
I didn't realize that. Good.
Yeah, that they owned, the cartel owned, and patched them up. Also, in the initial attack, a stray bullet hit an innocent Mexican woman and killed her.
I didn't hear that. That sucks.
Yeah. I believe once the heat was on, once everything came to light, and once the United States says, yeah, this is not cool, dude, the cartel itself wrote a letter saying that they did not sanction this. This was done by rogue members of the cartel. They don't approve of it. They apologized to the woman's family, the Mexican woman's family. They apologized to the family of the two American victims that didn't make it, and apologized to the victims themselves and their families. And then they took the four men that were responsible and turned them over to the authorities. How did they do that? They bound them up, put them in a vehicle that was involved in the attack that the police were looking for, and left them for the police.
Yeah. I heard that.
So we go through all that. That is basically the rundown of what's happened so far. The two victims that survived are back in the States. And now all we can do is, and I believe that the bodies of the two that didn't make it were also brought back, but I believe
they were too.
Now we get because of course no one's going to be held responsible for it except for those four, I suppose. Which brings me to
they're lucky
wild
alive,
speculation
actually.
Days. These are my wild speculation days. Well, see, here's the thing: if they were eliminated by the cartel, then the cartel wouldn't be able to really say. They wouldn't have. See, the cartel is doing it to save face because they need the people in that city to support them, or their whole organization falls apart.
Right.
So it's almost like the mafia, where they do good things for the people in the city in order to continue doing their illegal things.
Right.
So they couldn't just go off and kill these guys. They had to show the people, hey, we're not involved. We're doing things the right way. They're going off to jail. Here's my thing, and this is where my overactive imagination takes over. What if this was all a conspiracy from the beginning with the authorities of Mexico and the cartel, and that because things went south, they're making it look like it was no big deal? In other words, I mean, the government has since seized the ambulance and the clinic that they took the people to get them patched up, even though it's still run by the cartel. So how did they exactly seize it?
Conspiracy or not? Maybe that's just normal operations. It's a corrupt country. At least common knowledge goes. So I wouldn't consider that a conspiracy whatsoever. I would expect that. That's sure. Okay. What can we do about it? It's within the politics of their country. Nothing. We have to accept that. Or we do something else, what we can from this side, such as sanctions or whatever else. But can't do anything about it otherwise. It's up to they have the right in their country to do that, right or wrong.
I'm not saying they don't have the right. I'm saying that it's a conspiracy between the cartels and the government.
I wouldn't necessarily know if it's a conspiracy. I think it's a normal form of doing business.
That would still be conspiring, wouldn't it?
I think that's a stretch to call it a conspiring. To make it, it's not a conspiracy. It's not a far stretch of anything.
It doesn't have to be a far stretch. You can get arrested for conspiracy when you collude with someone to do something illegal. It doesn't have to be something far-fetched.
Fair enough. Okay, whatever.
Also, the fact that almost immediately when the news broke, the president came out and said, "Oh yeah, it was definitely. We're sure that it was the cartels that did it."
Mm-hmm.
With a huge lack of investigation, they were able to come to that conclusion and publicly announce that. It just seems that it's way too convenient and to set up for what could be called scapegoats. Lower people on the totem. I almost guarantee they were low on the totem pole when it comes to the cartels before that were handed over. And they were just put in a car and left there, not knowing. The cartel had to then notify. I'm sure they had to notify the police and say, "Hey, the car you're looking for is over here."
Right, easy enough to do. But if you think about it, that was the best thing the cartel could have done.
For them,
set aside how it happened. It was, if they didn't do that, the heat that would have rained down on them, they better be looking up for missiles, because that's what we're going to do to retaliate. So they were backed into a corner by the potential retaliation of the U.S. It's not like this person's family is going to come at them. The entire country is going to come after them. There's a difference.
Right, but
plus the military of that country said, "What the fuck are you doing?" Fidel.
Well, they could have, like you had mentioned earlier, they could have just eliminated those 4 people and said, "We took care of it in-house. It's all done. No need to worry."
Well, yeah, but then that would have come across as a conspiracy if they tried to cover it up as such. That's a cover-up. That's different. I think they did it out of and turned over the people so they could be questioned themselves. You can't question the dead. And I think that both the U.S. and or probably the Mexican government would have preferred to have something alive that they could put in jail or whatever with. It was more effective this way. It was the right thing to do from the worst people, but they had no choice to do it this way. None, no choice, and they did it quickly. They were right to do so.
I don't think they really worried about the U.S. and what their retaliation would be. I think they were more concerned with the citizens and what their retaliation would be, since an innocent citizen was murdered. They had to make good on that. They had to make good on that. Otherwise, the city would turn against them, and they need those people.
Exactly. So yeah, a whole bunch of things would have happened, but it would have all been bad for them. It was the fastest, smartest decision they could do. Who knows what else they're going to do to try to make this better. They might even actually put money involved. These cartels have been getting better and better at their taking care of people around their employ. You know, from what the little bits I'm hearing here and there, they're using less terrorism. You know, they're not butchering their people the way they used to. You know, which is interesting, and it makes sense. They have the money; they can afford it. Fuck, they have the wealth of a country.
It's now less about brutality and more about hospitality and helping people.
Sure. You want to look at it that way? Yeah.
It's image making. They have a good PR team.
Yes, it's a business. Mm-hmm. Which is why it makes sense that this happened as quick as it could have happened, regardless of how, whether there's a conspiracy of these guys colluding with each other to make it happen. It's irrelevant. They had to do it. They had no choice. No choice. Because look at the Republicans on how they were crying and how they've been bitching about what happened in this and how blah, blah, blah. They were demanding stuff in Congress. No, I think there was a bit of fear in there. Some of the cartel dudes might have had a little pee coming at them because of it. They didn't know
I would think more. I would think more that they would be under the mindset of there's no way that the U.S. would just attack Mexico.
Well, yeah, they're declaring them a terrorist organization now, which I don't really get, but still,
the entirety of Mexico is a terrorist organization, or the cartels?
The cartels,
right? So their mindset is
difference does it matter? You call it so they can't fly now or something? What? You know, I don't understand what the purpose is.
Their mindset is we're staying in our country, we're doing our thing, and there's no way that the U.S. can get involved because otherwise they'll put civilians at risk.
I mean, I don't have any more or less respect for them for doing this, but it was the thing that was necessary for them in order to potentially continue doing business the way they are. So,
plus, they have to save face because if these people were really rogue, then that means that they don't have a handle on their own people.
I feel sorry for probably these guys' families. Who knows what's going to happen? You know, will they go back to the old ways and take out family members for the sins of the criminals, the brothers? Hopefully that won't happen.
I would say that they were just random scapegoats because they were on the bottom of the list, but
I don't know, because when they were, just apologize for interrupting, but I would think that once they were captured in U.S. custody and safe, dude, they put us up to this, and that would come out. They would spill their beans. Well, no, we wouldn't execute them.
They would be so worried what the cartel would do to them if they talked. But
I don't know.
The more I think about it, the more sense it makes that they're the actual perpetrators, because there's too many of them on video to go, okay, that person's not even on the video in the attack. Neither is that person. Why are they here? The people on the video have to be the people that the cartel turned over.
I wouldn't be surprised if it was the actual people. You know, maybe they could have even, well, no, I don't know how it went down itself, but the fact that they turned over the people, the vehicle and everything else, and the victims, they're lucky a few are still alive, because now those people can talk about what their captivity was like. what happened when they were, under the care of these criminals, you know.
Well, like I said
So
before, I don't get it that they thought they were Haitian drug smugglers or drug traffickers. All they had to do was
that
hear
does
their
sound a little
voice
thin.
once.
Mhm.
Hear their voice once and go, "Oh shit, they're Americans." I mean, I
You
don't.
got a point with that, yeah. And you're right. The story does seem a little thin. I'll give you that.
I mean, yes, they were people of color, but that doesn't mean that anything really.
No, maybe they were thinking American tourism and they wanted some money.
Well, that's what I'm wondering. If they were thinking they were going to do it for cash, for
And
even
then they
for a
realized
ransom,
these
say
people
we,
don't have any cash.
right.
You know,
That's
the
why they're
accounts
coming here. They're
already
not.
empty. Yeah.
Yeah, they're not tourists. They're coming here looking for a discount on medical procedures. They got
Five people probably shared the gas of that trip because they drove. You know, so they shared the hotel price. They shared everything else, all the food expenses, everything. They paid for themselves to make it cheap. You know.
Well, yeah. I mean, I can understand. I believe that the person going never made it through. The person who was looking for the procedure was one of
They
the
didn't
ones
make it. I was curious about that myself. I don't know. So the person that this was going for, the one getting the procedure, passed away.
is yeah. And I guess their cousin was a female that was with them. She was I think she was the one that got shot,
Okay.
but not fatally.
Because I remember seeing that one person was thrown in, but she seemed okay.
Right.
And then they were attempting to, it seemed like, double carry someone and swing them up in the vehicle. So I don't know what was.
Yeah, they blurred it out, which means
Is it-
that was definitely one of the shooting victims.
Yeah, either they were still alive or they were deceased at that point. I don't know. I don't know what happened other than injuries at the scene.
I wonder how cartels operate. And what I mean by that is when this group from the cartel did what they did they call up like the head cartel headquarters and go, "Hey, listen, we just did this. This may go south. Can you back us up or whatever?" Or, did they explain to them what they did, or they just operate on their own and with under the guise of the cartel?
Right. With the absolute impunity. Yeah. That is interesting. I wonder if they just, they get called up when they're needed, but when they're not needed, they're free to do as they wish. Interesting. If that's the case. Not a good way to run an organization, though.
Well, you're right.
Or maybe these were little people that finally got power because they were part of the cartel, and they just decided to throw their weight around because they could. I'm working for Jimmy over here, Louie, whatever you want to call him. A cartel member. I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with the names.
No, it's all good. It's Jose, Manuel,
mob, same thing. Yeah. Guido. There you go.
But
Guido Sarducci.
I'm sure that all this will come out in the future weeks and months as more information comes to light. When they talk to the victims and so forth, and the 4 that were captured. I don't know if they'll be sent to America because the crimes were all committed in Mexico. So I don't know if they'll even come to the States. The 4 that were turned over.
Right.
Unless Mexico has some sort of deal with the FBI or the government, still it wouldn't be extradition because it never happened here. So I don't know how that would work.
That is interesting. No,
It's like if you,
I don't know how it works, but I know there is a process for that. Assaulting someone abroad and even violating the laws of that country too, because that's what they obviously seem to have done.
There was that girl that disappeared. That dude ended up that he killed her, and he was, I guess it was in the Scandinavian countries, I don't remember which one. And he was tried and convicted in that country rather than over in America.
Hmm.
So I would assume that the same goes for Mexico, unless they have some sort of special deal with the United States because we're bordering them. But
Interesting.
I'm sure we'll find out more about that in the weeks and months to come.
Right. I know. I've been paying a little bit of attention to it. I'd like to hear what people have to think on the subject.
So much to cover, so little time.
Right.
This world is still going to hell in a handbasket, and it's not turning around anytime soon. And with that said, good morning, good evening, and good night.
Peace.